Okay, here's what was on the cover of our local paper on the 11th of April. Gazette, World grieves for Poland. Crash kills 97. President dies in national tragedy. When you look at the list of who died in this plane crash, it's like the who's who of the Polish government and all the top military officials. So when I heard of this, I was like, oh my god, it was totally the New World Order who did it. Because it's just too much of a happy coincidence for them. Because the Polish government actually, they weren't really going along with the New World Order too well. You may remember that they completely refused to give the swine flu vaccine to the Polish population. The health minister, Ewa Kopacz, said she wouldn't give it because the flu was mild, the vaccine was full of junk, and it was unproven. And the swine flu vaccine thing was a big thing for the New World Order, and the extent to which countries went along with it or didn't was, I think, pretty indicative of how well they were going along with the New World Order in general. So that was one thing that kind of showed me that Poland was not going along with the plan so well. Okay, this is from rebelnews.org. Was Polish president murdered in staged plane crash? And it says here, Jews were upset that President Kaczynski had anti-Semites in his ruling coalition. Okay, Rebel News seems to think it had something to do with the Jews, but we'll get into that later. One thing they talk about in this article is the fact that the Polish currency, the zloty, had gone up in value and had returned to just about what it was worth before the economic crisis had hit. The National Bank of Poland and the Polish government had agreed that they would intentionally lower the value of the zloty, because this is what would be good for Poland's economy, because I guess if the zloty's valued too high, nobody wants to buy anything from them or something like that. The National Bank of Poland and the Polish government had agreed to intentionally weaken the zloty. This would be good for Poland's economy, because I guess having a zloty that's too strong would make it so nobody would want to buy anything from them or something. But it wasn't what was good for the European Union. And it says here, in moving to weaken the zloty, Poland's leadership was placing the interests of the people of Poland ahead of the interests of the European collective known as the European Union, the collective. They had made this decision to intentionally weaken the value of their currency the day before the crash. And guess who was on the plane? The head of Poland's central bank, Sławomir Skrzypek. This was the second way that Poland had maybe pissed off the New World Order. And this article also refers to the Jewish Telegraph. So let's see what the Jews have to say about this. This is from the Jewish Telegraph. Jews mixed on new Polish leader. Okay, this is from back in 1999. The incoming president's Catholic-oriented Law and Justice Party governs Poland in coalition with two extremist parties. There's that word. Again, extremist. So it kind of gives you a hint about how they feel about who he's governing the country with. Self-Defense and the League of Polish Families, whose members have frequently expressed anti-Semitic sentiments. Then they go on to say that the League of Polish Families is closely connected to Radio Maria, a station that espouses anti-Semitism and is popular among conservative Catholics who reject the late Pope John Paul II's message of reconciliation with the Jewish people. But like the article says here, it was mixed. Some were happy, some were not. Rebel News seems to think it has something to do with that, and maybe you should just go read the article at Rebel News, because they'll explain it a lot better than I possibly could. Okay, this list of who was actually on the plane, this is from the National Post from the 11th. It's just partial because it was from the 11th. But when you look, it's like, well, besides the president and his wife, there's also a lot of members of parliament, the chief of staff, head of the Polish Navy, the foreign ministry, deputy defense minister, deputy foreign minister, and a lot of very high-ranking military officials. Apparently it was like everybody was really important and the military was on that plane. What an amazing way to get rid of everybody in the Polish government. To have them all on the same plane and then have a plane crash. Could it be? This is from the Wall Street Journal, April 12th. Probe points to human error in Polish plane crash. Wall Street Journal, they'd like you to believe that it had something to do with two things. One, a language barrier, because the language used internationally by pilots and control towers is supposed to be English, but apparently in this case, the control tower people didn't speak English very well, and they were speaking Russian, and it was like 50-50 Russian and English. However, in the same article, they also say colleagues of the Polish pilot Captain Arkadiusz Protasiuk, interviewed in Polish daily Gazeta Wyborcza, said he spoke fluent Russian and was familiar with Smolensk Airport. So I don't see how language could have been a problem. The other thing they'd like you to believe is that it had to do with fog. According to Aviator, the Russian company that overhauled the Polish plane in December, the Tupolev was equipped with an electronic system that should have warned the pilots the plane was dangerously low. The system may not have been the most current standard, which would have given the crew more time to react. So they had a system there that is supposed to tell them if they're too low to the ground, but it didn't work properly. Maybe it was sabotaged. Pilots land in fog all the time, and flying a plane is supposed to be really safe, unless you're a politician. Okay, this is from the Telegraph, UK. VIP passenger syndrome may have contributed to Polish plane crash. Yeah, it may have, or it may not have. They'd like you to believe that the president ordered the pilot to land against the orders of the control tower. Apparently in 2008, he had done that to another pilot. The pilot refused, and then the president tried to have him fired. Okay, but here's the problem. It says right here in the same article, Andrzej Saramet, Poland's chief prosecutor, said that there was no information from the investigation so far to suggest that Mr. Kaczynski had put undue pressure on the pilot. So there was no evidence of that as of yet. And yet they kind of want you to believe that's what happened. They are also saying, oh, it's because there was fog over the airport, and that the navigation system didn't work as it was under repair. You think that they would let, say, President Obama go fly a plane on which the navigation system didn't work? I don't think so. I think that's strange. They suggest here, Mr. Gorsky suggested that the real reason Moscow did not want President Kaczynski to land was because he was due to attend a ceremony marking the 70th anniversary of an infamous Soviet massacre of Polish officers. They say it's because they didn't want him to upstage a similar event hosted by Putin a few days earlier. So both articles agree that it had something to do with the fact that they were going to this event honoring the POWs killed by the communists. Although one seems to think that it has something to do with the fact that some of those communists were Jews, and the other seems to think it has something to do with the fact that they didn't want to upstage Putin. But maybe they just wanted these people to die. Anyway, turned out to be very fortuitous for the New World Order. They got Poland out of the way, basically. Now they can put their puppets in there, and next time they'll all be taking their flu shots on time. Did they sabotage the plane? I don't know. Did they have to? Because they're all Satanists. Here's a thought. Maybe they can just like do their satanic stuff and make things happen. Hey? It's possible, you know? Either they sabotaged it or they put a hex on it, or it was just a really, really, really lucky coincidence.